For what seems like forever now, a viewer of the channel made a request that I review Persona 5 Strikers. I said I would, and shortly after that I dropped $40 on Persona 5 Strikers on sale on Amazon. Now, quite some time later, I have finally finished the review. So let's not wait around any longer and get this show on the road, as it's time to answer the question, what's it worth? Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's It Worth, a review where I give my opinion on what games are worth, which I hope will help a few gamers out there save a few bucks. With that said, please make sure you subscribe for upcoming content and reviews. I'm hoping to reach the goal of 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year 2023. Thank you so much for the 600 plus subscribers that have already subbed to the channel. I appreciate you. Persona 5 Strikers released in February of 2021 as a direct sequel to Persona 5. That should not be confused with Persona 5 Royal, as that game has had some changes made to it that wouldn't make it a direct sequel. If you are thinking of picking up Persona 5 Strikers but have not yet played Persona 5, I would recommend that you do so to best understand the characters and their references to the previous game. As always, I will try to keep spoilers to a minimum. The story of Persona 5 Strikers starts shortly after the events that transpired in Persona 5. The Phantom Thieves are attempting to set out on a summer camping trip when they discover something fishy with the people of Shibuya. They seem to be in awe of this up-and-coming fashion designer known as Alice. The people of Shibuya seem to be infatuated with her, almost borderline obsessed. The Phantom Thieves also discover that Alice stole the desires of the people by using an app called Emma. The Phantom Thieves begin to look into Alice. By doing this, they find themselves within the metaverse yet again. The metaverse is like an alternate dimension that is described by Morgana as a realm of cognition. This time, instead of searching for treasures in palaces, as they did in Persona 5, the Phantom Thieves are infiltrating jails and searching for the stolen desires. The desires that were stolen from the people of Shibuya are hidden in a jail that is controlled by Alice. By Alice being in control of the jail, she is known as the jail's monarch. The Phantom Thieves soon find out that Alice isn't the only one who is stealing desires, and there are monarchs all over Japan. The Phantom Thieves will need to travel and discover these jails with some help from their new ally, Sophie, who can literally sniff out the locations of these jails. Once the Phantom Thieves find the jails, they will need to seek out the monarchs, defeat them, return the stolen desires, and shut down the app known as Emma. Persona 5 Strikers has a fairly long campaign. The game took me approximately 48.5 hours to complete, and that was with doing quite a few side missions. With that said, the story does feel a bit drawn out. I found that there were times that the dialogue seemed as if it ran forever, when all I wanted to do is get a little gameplay in. The game does offer ways to pass the dialogue, but as a reviewer I wanted to ensure that I got the full experience. Also, I felt as if the game could have ended several hours before it actually does. And for me at least, it felt as if the game wants to end on several occasions, but then something would happen to just continue the story. With that said, the story definitely has its moments. The depth of the characters and how they portray their feelings about whatever situation they find themselves currently in is creative and fairly enjoyable. The plot has some interesting twists and turns and definitely has some comical events that are memorable. While not the greatest or most engrossing story I have ever played, I did find some of the best parts really enjoyable. The cutscenes look great and they emphasize the story. The game does have some anti-aliasing issues, but that really doesn't take away from the experience in my opinion. The gameplay looks good and rarely stutters, which is something I was worried about on the Switch, since a similar game, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, did have a lot of frame rate issues. The sound of the dialogue is well done and the hacking and slashing sounds are as good as can be expected, but I feel the sound really shines with the music. The game has some pretty great music. It definitely livened up the game. Here's a clip. Take a listen. Persona 5 Strikers doesn't play like Persona 5. Persona 5 uses turn-based combat, where Persona 5 Strikers is more of a hack-and-slash Dynasty Warrior style game. The gameplay for the most part plays well. The gameplay is fairly responsive, and I didn't notice any hang-ups other than the camera and the lock-on. I found that the camera, and especially when the camera is locked on, would get a little bit wonky sometimes and can be a little annoying, but nothing game-breaking. The game's combat has some good and not so good things about it. It suffers from something I have found issue with in the few warrior-style games I have played, and that is the mobs, after some time, tend to become a mind-numbing button mash. I don't really think all that much to defeat most mobs, or I just run right past them. The boss fights are definitely where I feel Persona 5 Strikers shines in regards to its combat. The boss fights can be pretty challenging and satisfying to defeat on normal difficulty. The bosses do take some strategy to beat, and there are often different things in the environment that can be used to help take down the boss, or you can exploit their weaknesses by using your character's abilities or personas. Personas are monsters that can be summoned by your character in-game. They are manifestations of one's inner self or psyche. These monsters have different attacks and abilities that can be useful in most fights. Joker is the only one of the Phantom Thieves that can use different personas, which can be obtained by capturing shadows which are located in jails. All the rest of the Phantom Thieves just have one persona. As a player, you can approach the shadows in one of three ways. You can try and run past them, which will cause them to become aggressive, and if they get close enough to you, they can attack you, causing you to be stunned for the first part of the battle. You can approach them stealthily, which will allow you to stun them, and give you a chance to wear them down. And lastly, you can just run right up to them and attack them for a normal battle. This is another way that the game incorporates some strategy. The combat of Persona 5 Strikers takes place in the jails, which I discussed earlier. The thing about jails that I found lackluster is some of the early jails seem to be basically the same idea. Find a special item that allows you to access another area, fight a few mini-bosses here and there, then fight the final boss. Not exactly a whole lot of variety involved there. Other than that, Persona 5 Strikers does allow you to change weapons and armor. It allows you to cook different items that will help with your HP and your SP, and buy and sell items to Sophie in the store. There is also a bunch of side quests, which I actually did quite a few in my playthrough, and even though they're mostly defeat X amount of enemies or fetch quests, they are something to do besides the main story's campaign, and gives you a reason to return to past jails. The gameplay of Persona 5 Strikers, while not perfect, with a little TLC to the combat style, enemies, game layout, this could potentially be the future of Persona games, or possibly a Persona 6 Strikers? I guess we'll see. Persona 5 Strikers really doesn't have much in the way of replayability value. There is a hard difficulty option if you decide to play on easy or normal, but that's really it. There unfortunately isn't a multiplayer component to this game, but I feel like there could have been. It could have ran the same path as Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and allowed two players to play on the same Switch, as you do use 4 characters at a time in Persona 5 Strikers. It's just a thought. Persona 5 Strikers was admittedly a lot better than I thought it would be. I didn't have all that much confidence in the change from the type of gameplay that Persona 5 was to Persona 5 Strikers. It had some tedious gameplay moments, but then it had some pretty good gameplay moments. It had some awesome music, decent graphics on the Switch, and mostly stable gameplay. Persona 5 Strikers was a decent game overall, which means it's worth around $40. Once again, I apologize for how long this review took me to get out. I have a lot planned coming up, and am hoping I can keep going strong. Anyway, please like this video, it would be a huge help to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.